Today's topic of discussion is X-rated content. Now, in today's society, there's a lot of people who are addicted to X-rated content. They're consuming all this filth on a daily basis. It's damaging their mindsets and their relationships. So in this video, we're going to be discussing some key points in terms of how X-rated content damages you and how it affects your future relationships. So first point is disease. Now I'm going to play this 1-minute clip for you guys of a woman describing how her husband has a corn addiction. So I'll play it now for you guys.
My husband has a corn addiction, and I'm going to answer some questions about it. One of the questions was, does it affect your intimacy, and how? Yes, I will say when we were first married, I was super confused, like why he didn't want to be intimate all the time. I was like, don't guys want to like do it all the time? And so that was really confusing to me, but I would say probably the hardest thing that I've experienced is there's just been times, like this was when he was in the thick of his addiction, that like I knew he'd be coming home, and so I would dress up in lingerie, and then like he'd come home and then he would just be like, oh cool, and then like play video games or something, and that would like literally shatter me. So I think that was like the hardest part. And I mean, this is pretty like, I don't know, this is maybe TMI, but I want to share it in case, like, I know there's other people going through a similar situation. And I posted another video just reminding everybody that just because your partner struggles with a corn addiction, it's not because of you. It's not because you're not enough. It's an unhealthy coping mechanism that they learned when they were young, at least my husband, and it is really hard to break from.
Okay, so you guys are back now. You've had a watch of it. Now, in that video, you saw how that lady, she had broken down, describing what it's like living with somebody with a corn addiction. Now, for people that don't know, the X-rated industry, corn industry, is a multi-billion-dollar industry. From the stats, so I showed you guys the stats as well. From the stats, it turns over 100+ billion annually. Can you believe it? This filthy industry creates billions and billions and billions every year. Now you guys are probably thinking, how? How are they generating so much money from just doing filth? Now, there's obviously somebody who's funding this type of industry. And when you start looking into it, the real evil that takes place within this industry and the agenda behind it, you're going to start to see the reason why they're funding it. Now, one of the main reasons why they're funding this industry is because they want to break down men and women. Now, there's literally a war that's taking place between good and evil in the world. Now, for people who are youngsters who start off watching this content from a young age, you got some people as young as 7, 8, 9, 10 being exposed to X-rated content from the internet. So when they're exposed at that young age, before you know it, they're addicted to it for several years. Now this is something which people who are watching this may be battling right now. That's how serious it is. Now, I didn't know how bad this disease was until I've had more people actually approach me and say to me, Omar, I'm going through certain problems and I need some advice. So I'll mention one example, right? The other day, I must have been in the gym doing my workout, and one of my good friends approached me. A guy with good morals, good integrity, he's got good character, very respectable guy. He must have started describing an addiction that he had previously. So this addiction was X-rated content. And I was listening to what he was saying, and he was basically describing how many people are actually suffering with this alone and in silence. Something which not many people feel like they're brave enough to talk about. It's something which is brushed under the carpet. Now, as he was describing it to me, I kind of felt sorry for the people who are actually addicted to this, because some people genuinely want to get away from that, but they just keep getting pulled into that vicious cycle. So he was describing it to me how it's like a vicious cycle, how he was praying to God, he was trying his best with all the tips, keeping himself busy and stuff like that, but he just kept on getting drawn into it. Now there's certain people who are watching this right now who may be addicted or who are watching X-rated content. Now, the first step is acknowledging that you have a problem. Just like any addiction out there, the first step to rehabilitation is acknowledging that you have an issue. Now, if you don't acknowledge it and you don't see it as an issue, then you're going to end up consuming more and more filth. So there's certain people right now who are watching this right now. If you need somebody to reach out to, you can reach out to like myself, Class Morals, on Instagram or TikTok. So you can just reach out to me and say, oh, XYZ, I'd like to book a session. So there's some people right now who are battling this on a daily basis and they're trying to get away from it, but they just keep getting pulled into that cycle. Now, when you don't keep yourself busy and you're not working on your purpose, this is the type of addictions you're going to get caught up in. When you're all alone, you're just sat at home, you've got too much free time on your hands. Before you know it, you're just watching stuff that you shouldn't be. So Next point is damage. Now, you guys saw from that 1 minute clip of that lady describing what it's like living with a partner with a corn addiction. It can be so bad for your future partners. It makes them feel like they're not good enough. You know, it doesn't just damage your own mindset, it damages the people around you. Now, I must have been typing in on the internet some of the effects of watching X-rated content. Now, there's certain people who are socially awkward and they experience high anxiety. Some of those things can be a result of watching X-rated content and consuming it too much. It's shocking, isn't it? How some people can literally develop these type of avoidance tendencies because they're consuming this filth behind closed doors. You know, so it not only damages the person's mindset, it damages the body, it damages your spirituality, you know, your mind, body, and soul. So, next point is relationships. Now, people who are watching this, let's say you've got an addiction or you're somebody who's consuming X-rated content. If you don't tackle this issue and actually realize that this is going to damage your relationships, then it's only going to get worse. You know, so people start watching X-rated content, low tier level, and then eventually the dopamine isn't enough. So they start watching more extreme content. And then they're chasing after that dopamine hit. It's like a vicious cycle that they're hitting. They're trying to chase that dopamine hit. And then eventually they crash out. And then I was reading how there's a period where people experience a low period. So they feel like they've come right back down again. Now myself, right, I'm kind of describing the situation. I don't know what it's like because I've mentioned this before. I've never actually jerked off in my life. So I've had wet dreams, so that's called nocturnal emission. But that act itself, jerked off, I've never done that in my life. So I'm kind of just describing what other people on the internet are saying. So they're saying how this addiction is literally sucking all of their energy. Some people think that when they get married, when they have a partner, this addiction is just going to go away. You know, it's just going to evaporate. The truth is, this addiction ain't going anywhere. It ain't going to disappear. So it's really important you guys start working on it now if you do have a problem with this. Because if you don't tackle this issue before getting into a relationship, chances are it's going to affect your intimacy. So, final point is cycle. Now, people who are watching this type of filth, they're consuming it, they've jerked off, masturbated, whatever you want to call it, and then they've crashed out, they've hit a new low, and then they repeat the cycle. Now, these people here need to realize that you're not consuming something which is natural. It's literally just pixels on a screen. Now, it's digital. It ain't real. And these people who are creating these type of videos are paid actors. Dirty scumbags. Degenerates. They're getting paid to create this type of filth. It's just real evil stuff that's taking place in the world. Now, I can only imagine what it's like being in this type of cycle. How some people are literally battling these demons on a daily basis. Some people are consuming it once a day, twice a day, 3 times plus a day. I mean, it gets to the point where it's just completely out of control. And this is what happens when you start consuming a small amount. So it's just like with alcohol. So people who are alcoholics, 9 out of 10 times, they started off socially drinking. They would go out for a social drink. And then they increased their limits until it got to the point where they became alcoholics. So it's really important you guys break these type of cycles, break these addictions. These are literally going to be the hardest battles you're going to have to face in life. The battle against your desires and temptations. So, just to wrap up, disease. Right now, the X-rated industry is damaging millions of people globally. It's a disease that nobody is really talking about. This right here is being funded by the Zionists. The Zionists know full well when they create this type of content and get people to consume it, people are going to stay addicted and then they're going to get weakened. Next one after that was damage. That's what it does. It damages your brain cells. It destroys your dopamine levels. And it affects your intimacy. You don't want to be in a position where you're with your partner and you're only able to be intimate for like 1 minute or 10 seconds. The next one after that was relationships. So as you guys saw from that 1 minute clip from the beginning, this is a real life addiction that affects many people. It affects many people in relationships. Imagine being with your partner and then in your head you're just thinking about, I need to go on my laptop or my phone and consume X-rated content. How is your other partner going to feel about that? They're going to feel like they're not good enough. And then eventually they're just going to end up separating, divorce. And then the final point was cycle. This right here is like a vicious cycle. People who are consuming this X-rated content, they'll consume it, they'll get a little dopamine hit, and then they'll release, so jerk off, and then they'll crash. So high, then low. And then that just messes up your dopamine levels. And then you're just chasing after that same feeling. So this is part 1 to the series. I'm going to do a part 2 in the future as well, because this is something which isn't really being talked about enough. So this was covering more of the effects of X-rated content. And for the upcoming videos, I'm going to talk about the solutions and how to effectively work on your purpose. So I hope that makes sense, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.